Loved ones, we meet again, Management 3234. This is session 8 in the syllabus. If we're meeting face-to-face, this would be day 3 of week 2. And I don't have any admin stuff to talk with you about today. Perhaps I should mention that on this day that I'm filming, I will probably film 5 sessions for your class. So yes, you're going to see me in the same shirt, but it's all in the same day. One shower, one shirt. As you know from having viewed 2 of these earlier, that these videos move quickly. They're relatively short in terms of the presentation time because I have no opportunity to interact with you. You don't have a chance to challenge me, ask questions, look for clarification, talk about applications, and that's one of the many things I regret about us not meeting face-to-face. So I'll begin in just a moment, but I need to introduce the topic for what will become the attendance verification question. I have with me at this front table a flask. I haven't put a magnet on it. I assume it's stainless steel. It could be aluminum, I don't know. But there's a short story about this flask. For all of my adult life, I have been playful, and I delight in that. My playfulness is never harsh. It's never judgmental. I don't pick on people. In fact, I usually pick on myself, and that's a good thing. So I can only think of one time, and it didn't really get me into trouble, but it became an uncomfortable situation. When I was at the University of Louisville, I had a delightful man named Robert Taylor, who was our dean. And Bob announced in a faculty meeting once with a great deal of solemnness that he just had some sort of a double or triple bypass surgery where stents were placed in major arteries. And he realized that being a dean was an incredibly stressful job, and he was stepping down. And the room was dead quiet for a few seconds. And I raised my hand, and he said, "Bill." And I said, authentically, we as a group are delighted that you've recognized the stresses and that you're going to take yourself out of that situation. It is well that you're stepping down. We applaud that decision. And then I said, "Could I have your parking space?" And the other 125 faculty in the room roared, but he was not amused. So I didn't get into trouble, but my point is this playfulness is common throughout my life in every dimension. I take my responsibilities seriously, but I never take myself seriously. I think that's good counsel. So the story about the flask is, because I'm playful, I took this flask to a faculty meeting here in the Parker College a year or 2 ago, but of course I didn't tell anyone. And we're sitting in, what is that big classroom, 1126 or something like that, 1124. It's the only classroom in the building that I think holds about 125 people. And we often teach intro to business in there because we have huge sections, and it does accommodate the entire faculty and staff of the college. So the only room in this building that all of us can fit in for a meeting is that big tiered classroom on the first floor of the Parker College. So we were in there, and I often sit in the front row, and I do that because I'm close to the door. It's my escape plan. I'm not sitting in the front row to pay more attention to the dean. I'm doing there because I want to be out at my will, in my timing. But I decided to be playful, and I took my flask to the meeting, and several times during the meeting I picked it up and uncovered it and hid it for a couple of seconds. And there's a screw on top, and I put it down, and I did that several times, and it wouldn't surprise you to hear that almost all of the people in the room elbowing each other and pointing and whispering. No one has ever said a word to me about that. It was probably 2 years ago. But what they don't know, and this is part of my joy of being playful, is there was Diet Coke in the flask. I keep bottled water and Diet Coke in my office because I'm here so many hours in the course of the week. So my flask had Diet Coke in it. I don't drink because I get stupid after 2 beers. You probably do too, but many of you like it, and I don't. So I really haven't drunk since I was 27, and that was a lot of years ago. So that is my fun story for today, the flask in the faculty meeting. And now we're going to jump back into the Journal of Management Education article. We're going to look at session 5 in the body of the text and appendix E. The session in the body is the one that is meant for the entrepreneurship educators, but there's usually a lot of really good content and insight there, and that's why I revisit it with you. The appendix E is designed for the students. Those are your marching orders, for lack of a more elegant term. So let me hit the water bottle, and then bring up the article, and we'll talk through it together. So, the side heading in the body of the article for session 5, and again, this session 5 has the complementary appendix, appendix E. They focus on precisely the same tasks and the same subject. Session 5 says, now we're going to talk about updating content and identifying venture ideas. To some degree, I mentioned that we talked about the previous session in appendix D, Delta. I gave an example of me meeting with commercial real estate lenders and then making notes about whatever they did. So let me take you through this, because this is where the primary piece, though, in the prior session was for you to develop search strategies. You'd already built a consideration set, and then the next step in that process of systematic search is develop strategies for each information channel. I gave examples both in my presentation to you and also in the appendix at the end of the article. So today we're talking about literally searching and updating. When I say updating, writing stuff down, making decisions, that kind of thing. So let's scroll through this. This talks about the Venture Idea Journal, and we'll get to that in just a second. Let me scroll down. Well, actually, there's not a lot of guidance here. We kind of assume, I guess, that the faculty will make decisions on sharing with their students how to update content and identify venture ideas. So let's go down to the appendix, to appendix E, Echo. And this is just a reminder. During the third session, you identified domains of knowledge and you developed information channels. In the fourth session, you developed search strategies. In this session, this part of the systematic search learning is when you literally actively search and grab what you learn. So, and of course we hope that what comes out of that will be some cool ideas for new concepts, new products, whatever the case may be. So let's go down here and we talk about recording venture ideas, because the process of updating writing information channels should help you search more effectively, discover some promising ideas. You should continue to search and update your information channels. Again, you built the consideration set, so you know what the information channels are, the sources of regular, reliable, low-cost signals. That was 3. Session 4, you literally developed a search strategy. What will I do with what frequency? Will I read these magazines once a month? Will I go to the industry trade association's website once a week, once a month? How often will I meet with local business women or businessmen? You developed a set of search strategies. Now we're doing it. Now we're actively searching, grabbing what we discover. And if you think about our earlier conversations on systematic search, every signal that you find will discreetly go in one of 3 categories. You may discover that it has no value to you. If I'm going to open a soft frozen yogurt store, I don't particularly care what the car dealerships are doing. or what the people who sell ag equipment are doing, or what the people in the pizza business are doing. None of that stuff impacts my decision to sell a frozen confectionery dessert. So some signals are valueless. Some signals are provocative. You think, my gosh, this is kind of exciting. There may be potential there. And of course, in the case of a signal that's provocative, you drill down. You do more search. You do research. You talk to people. You get more intel. And then you make a decision. Your decision will be to discard the signal or to move farther forward. And then, of course, we have that group of signals that we call compelling. They're so good that you have to do something. So this is nothing other than a reminder that this session is when you actively search, when you go through each of your information channels and capture, you write down what you found. And it's highly likely that when you find one of those signals that's compelling, in your view, you would consider that to be a venture idea. I might take this concept to market. I don't know enough about it right now, but it's actionable. So again, that's the significance. So let me go down here, because this thing about recording ideas in your new venture journal, each of you will be giving me one on, I think it's the last day of class in B term, but that is your major deliverable in here. So, as you are recording ideas in your new venture journal, here's what I would like to see, because this is what permits you to make good decisions, whether it's to discard or to invest or whatever the case may be. The date of the entry and some sequential number. This is idea number 7, this is idea number 21, just so that you can refer to something. Much as we use session numbers in this online format, because the only time dates are really operative is if you have some assignment that's due. So session numbers have great significance here. They really do. That's why giving a sequential idea number to every venture idea is also beneficial. It's a point of reference. Now, the third thing, a description of your idea, 2 or 3 or 4 sentences. A working title. I don't know if I've shared this with you, but in another environment when I was teaching this, and it was with MBA students, I had a student, and I thought this was treasure. His venture idea was Mr. Squirty. And this is when I was teaching at the University of Louisville. You may not realize this, but northern Kentucky gets a fair amount of snow in the course of the year. And because there's always moisture in the air, anytime it's cold, there's ice, frost, glaze on the windshield. So almost everybody has some kind of an ice scraper or a snow scraper, even if there's no snow on the ground. So Mr. Squirty was a plastic ice scraper, like what you can buy at Walmart for probably $1.89, but piggyback onto the top of the plastic ice scraper was a cylinder, and the cylinder had some sort of fluid in it, and it had some sort of a nozzle that would express that fluid out, and some sort of a device, like let's say it's just an on-off switch, or didn't need a power source or anything. So when you have Mr. Squirty in your hand and you start to scrape the windshield and the ice resists the mechanical abrasion, you squirt the little cylinder full of stuff, whatever that was, I don't know, it could have been liquor, but some liquid that would melt the ice, some sort of a de-icing compound. So that was Mr. Squirty. It was a plastic ice scraper with a little cylinder on it full of some sort of a liquid that would melt ice. So that was his working title for a venture idea, Mr. Squirty. And I'll love it and I'll never forget it. Now, your thoughts on the value proposition. Let's stick with Mr. Squirty for a minute. What if you said, all right, if I ignore all the southern states, the southeast through the southwest, if I ignore all the southern states, almost everybody that's not in a southern state will experience ice on the windshield during the winter months. Okay, so that means that for the sake of discussion, of a US population of 330 million, there might be 180 or 200 million people that potentially are in those areas that would have cold enough air that there'd be ice on the windshield. So of that group, how many people are car owners? I don't know, half, a third, don't really know. But my point is, what you could say to yourself in terms of the value proposition, you could say, I'm not aware, this is you at a moment in time, I'm not aware of a comparable product, anything that does the same thing, I think the market just in the United States is enormous. I don't have current data. It would be very, very easy for any of us to figure out how many registered motor vehicles there are in the United States. I would guess that it's on the long side, the north side of 125, 130 million. I would guess that. So what if you said nobody has competing product, and I think of the total population of vehicles, let's say it's 125 million, I think that 60 million of those vehicles live in climates, live in zones in this country of ours that would take advantage of this. And what that suggests is your market potential is 60 million units. And there are a lot of things I don't remember about Mr. Squirty. Could the cylinder that has the de-icing fluid in it could it be recharged? Could you buy like a gallon thing and refill it? Or do you throw away Mr. Squirty and buy another one for $5 or $6, whatever Mr. Squirty is sold for? But you see my point? The value proposition in my example would be something like half of the motor vehicles in the United States live in climate zones, temperature zones, where ice on the windshield is a likelihood, and that entire population of 60 million vehicles represents the number of units that I could sell. I'm not going to sell them all in year one, am I? And I don't know what the recurring sales might be, if this is meant to be a disposable instrument or if you somehow refill it. So the value proposition is pretty exciting. If you said, I'm pretty sure there are 2 guys in the United States who would buy this stuff, value proposition goes away. There's no way for you to make money, is there? You cannot develop and take a product to market if you get to sell 2 units, unless it's a SpaceX rocket or something like that. So, your thoughts on the value proposition. Now, what were you thinking of when this idea occurred? What many of you will discover, literally, and it will be a discovery, is we talk in the article about incubation. And the truth is, there are some exceptions to this, but most of us are always thinking. We're thinking on a subconscious level. And the reality is, some of our most productive thinking is when we're not focused on a specific search task. You'll discover things driving because your mind is always working. And the more that you learn about a given domain, the more stuff in your little pea brain is there to operate. Agreed? So you're driving to Savannah and you think, holy crap, what a great idea. Or you're in the shower, or you're mowing the lawn at your parents' home, or whatever you're doing. But what you'll discover is that your mind never rests. Again, there are exceptions. There are exceptions to that. Your mind never rests. It's always thinking on a subconscious level. And when you're doing things that don't require active thought, that is often when these eureka moments come. When you're driving, when you're showering, when you're doing something that you're not actively thinking, think, squirt out an idea. Very, very difficult to operate in those circumstances. So, what were you thinking of or doing when the idea occurred? Now, don't tell me you were making love, because I know damn well you were not going to be thinking about anything else. So, what were you thinking of or doing when this idea occurred? What knowledge domains may have influenced your discovery? Make that a declaration. Identify the information channel that gave rise to this idea. That's pretty important stuff, it really is. And identify the search strategy that you used when you were in that information channel. Whether it was, I was on a website for a manufacturer, I was reading a trade magazine, I was having lunch with, fill in the blanks. In my case, it would be LeBron James. Yeah, we are tight. Yeah, we're brothers. He and I are. So, this presentation on a venture idea will literally become an integral part of your venture journal. But my point is, as you go through this search process, as you are updating your consideration sets, you will have ideas that you think have commercial potential. And this is not the time, absolutely not the time, to dismiss them. Grab every idea that you think may have commercializable potential and write it down. This is not the time to say, gee, I don't think that's good enough, big enough, fancy enough, profitable enough. Grab the idea. A lot of things that are strikingly simple tend to be extraordinarily profitable. So again, don't limit anything. Grab everything, and this is just a good format for you to grab the information on each venture idea that you So, I'll talk about best two in our next session. That's not, because our next session will talk about your deliverables, the stuff that you report out to me. So, here, today, Appendix E, Echo, will give you clear guidance, and of course you can refer to session 5 in the body of the paper. Clear guidance on how you search and update your consideration sets. And the hope is, as you do that, you'll identify venture ideas and you'll grab them in that template that we just went through, that sort of a format. Here are the pieces of information that you should present about the venture idea. And I really want to emphasize for a second time that this is not the time for you to dismiss ideas. If you have an idea that you think has commercial potential, capture it. It's easy later to invest more time, more energy, more research. It's easy later to say, actually, this wasn't as promising as I thought, but right now, you're immersed in a search and discovery process. So, search for the ideas, discover the ones that you think have commercial potential. We can take them to market later, can't we? So that's a wrap for today. Excuse me. So, the question for attendance verification for session 8, I know you're just hanging on every breath. You can't imagine how unfulfilling it is to talk to an iPad. Believe me, this filming thing is not my heart, not what I want to do. I miss you. I look forward to the fall when we are together, except for those of you who are punching out of here. So, the question for attendance verification, yes, the flask comes back into view. What beverage was in this flask in that faculty meeting that I talked about? All right, we're done. Love you. Talk to y'all soon.